Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Mark, here with my good friend Chad. How's it going today, Chad?
Hey, Mark. Doing great, man. Always pumped to chat about real life stuff. And today's topic is one that I think a lot of people experience but don't talk about nearly enough.
That's exactly right. Today we're going deep on midlife crisis, what it actually is, why it happens, and the warning signs that men in particular need to know about. And we're not just talking about the clichés.
Yeah, because when most people hear midlife crisis, they picture a guy buying a red sports car or suddenly showing up in a leather jacket. But the reality is so much more nuanced and so much more personal than that.
So let's start at the beginning. What actually is a midlife crisis? Because I think a lot of people use the term without really understanding it.
Right? It's one of those terms everyone knows, but maybe no one explains perfectly. I think it can feel like this big, scary event, but really, it's just a part of life's normal ups and downs, just a particularly intense one.
My understanding is that it's a psychological phase that usually hits between 40 to 60 years old, where people start re-evaluating their lives, their achievements, goals, relationships. It's often triggered by emotional or life changes, causing anxiety, restlessness, or confusion.
And it's not just men either. Both men and women can experience it. But today, we're focusing on how it shows up specifically for men, because the signs can look pretty different, and the stigma around talking about it is still really strong.
So why does it happen? What actually triggers this phase? Because people don't just wake up one day and decide to question their entire existence.
There's a mix of things going on. First, there's the biological angle. Hormonal changes, decreased energy, changes in health that make you more aware of your own mortality. Your body starts sending signals that things are different, and your mind starts paying attention.
Then there are the psychological triggers, big life events that shake your sense of stability. Divorce, kids leaving home, losing a parent, job changes or setbacks. Any of these can crack open that existential reflection.
And social and cultural pressures add fuel to the fire too. Men compare themselves to peers, face shifting roles in family and society. Maybe they're no longer the young rising star at work, or their kids don't need them the same way. Sometimes they feel invisible or irrelevant as they age, and that can really shake confidence and purpose.
There's also the expectations angle. If someone dreamed of a perfect career, a certain level of success, a specific kind of family life, and things didn't measure up, that disappointment gets painfully magnified at midlife. You've had enough time to know things didn't go as planned, and not enough time left to pretend it doesn't matter.
And here's something important I want to flag right at the start. A midlife crisis isn't necessarily negative. Some psychologists actually prefer the term midlife transition because it's really about change and development, not just crisis. If you approach it right, it can be a chance to grow, realign your life with what truly matters, and build something better in the second half.
That's a reframe a lot of people need to hear. So with that context, let's look at how this actually shows up in real life, beyond the sports car cliché.
The biggest thing most guys hit first is just this constant, nagging restlessness. That feeling of being stuck in a rut where no matter what you do, career, family, hobbies, it's just not satisfying anymore. You suddenly want to shake things up, but you're not even sure how or why.
It's this internal itch that just won't go away. And sometimes it leads men to make impulsive decisions, quitting jobs, starting random projects, buying things they've never wanted before.
I remember hearing from a buddy who, in his mid-40s, bought a motorcycle out of nowhere. He'd never been into bikes before, said it was about reclaiming some excitement. Sounds extreme, but I get it completely.
And when you're feeling that restless, it almost always bleeds into identity confusion. Men start questioning who they really are beyond their job titles or family roles. When you've spent decades defining yourself as a provider, a professional, a dad, and then suddenly wonder, who am I if I'm not those things? It can feel destabilizing.
Exactly. And that identity confusion leads to a lot of behavioral shifts, changing style, habits, even social circles, all attempts to reinvent a sense of self.
Which naturally often spills over into mood swings and increased irritability. And this isn't just a bad day here and there. It's more intense fluctuations that can really strain relationships. Unexpected anger, sudden sadness, or emotional numbness.
Okay, I have to be honest here. My wife would probably say I hit this one early. There was this one week where I snapped at her because she moved my coffee mug. My coffee mug. I'm not proud of it.
Ha! The coffee mug incident. Classic. But that's actually a perfect example because in the moment, it feels totally justified, right? It's not the mug. It never was the mug.
Never the mug. And I think men often brush this off. I'm just stressed, without seeing it as part of something bigger, which is exactly what I told my wife, by the way. She wasn't buying it.
There's still a real stigma about men expressing emotional struggles. A lot of guys bottle things up, which makes everything worse. And sometimes, guys try to cope with that inner turmoil by physically fighting the aging process. Cue the sudden obsession with youth and appearance.
Right? Not just healthy self-care, but an intensity that goes beyond that. Hitting the gym excessively, completely changing wardrobe, or spending a lot of money trying to look younger.
At its core, it's about grappling with aging and feeling unsettled by time moving forward.
It's a fine line between taking good care of yourself and trying to freeze time, which always leads to frustration.
And it's so closely tied to that nostalgic what-if spiral, isn't it? Thinking back on youth, past relationships, chances not taken.
Oh man, I went through a phase where I kept pulling up my old college band photos. We were terrible, by the way, objectively bad. But I spent like 2 weeks convinced I should have pursued music.
Did you actually pick up an instrument?
I bought a guitar. It's in my closet, still in the case.
There it is. And that right there is the spiral in action. It feels real and urgent, but it's usually not about the guitar. It's about something deeper you're trying to reconnect with.
Exactly. Closet guitar can confirm.
Now, what's interesting is that it isn't always about looking backward. Sometimes this period triggers a sudden reevaluation of your current goals and values, realizing that what drove you 10 or 20 years ago just doesn't light you up anymore.
I love this aspect of it, honestly. It's like a reset button, but it can feel disorienting if your long-term plans suddenly seem irrelevant. The key is finding new meaning without throwing away everything that still matters.
But what's wild is that while all these internal shifts are happening, a lot of guys actually pull back socially and isolate themselves, which surprised me.
Especially if they feel misunderstood or ashamed of what they're going through. Pulling back becomes a defense mechanism. But ironically, it makes everything harder because connection is what you need most.
And when you combine that isolation with a desperate itch to feel alive again, you often get increased risk-taking behavior. Reckless spending, dangerous hobbies, sudden rash decisions. It's often a cry for help.
The riskier the behavior, the more likely someone is feeling genuinely lost.
So those are the main ways this transition tends to show up. But man, I don't want us to just sit here listing symptoms like a medical textbook. The real question is, how do you actually navigate this without burning your life to the ground?
That's the real test. For me, the absolute starting point is just brutal honesty, acknowledging what you're feeling instead of shoving it down or pretending everything is fine.
Absolutely. And once you admit something feels off, you have to get it out of your head. For a lot of guys, journaling or talking to a therapist helps organize that internal chaos. It gives you space to figure out what actually matters to you now versus what mattered 20 years ago.
Right? Because once you get clear on that, you realize you don't have to carry it all in secret. That social isolation we talked about, it's lethal. You have to lean into connection, friends, community, or your partner. I saw this firsthand with my neighbor. His job had consumed his life for a decade, and he was spiraling. But instead of retreating, he had an honest sit down with his wife, reorganized his priorities, and started reconnecting with his kids. That shift saved him.
That's awesome. And when you have that support, you can channel that restless energy into healthy outlets, exercise, creative projects, travel, learning new skills, rather than self-destruction. But here's my biggest rule. Don't make massive, irreversible life choices when your emotions are running hot. Pause. Let the storm pass before you decide to throw away a career or a relationship.
Cool heads win every time. And honestly, if the map still feels blurry, bring in a professional. Coaching, therapy, counseling. It's not a sign of weakness, it's just getting a guide for a trail you've never hiked before.
Couldn't agree more. The big misconception I want to leave listeners with is this. A midlife transition isn't a one-size-fits-all meltdown. It's a complex mix of emotions and reflections that can actually lead to real, meaningful growth if you approach it right.
Midlife isn't a dead end. It's a crossroads. And sometimes it's just your life asking for a new direction. You're not broken. You're not weird. You're human.
To everyone listening, which of these experiences resonates most with you? Or what's been the hardest part to recognize in yourself or someone else? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to hear from you.
Share your stories, your struggles, your tips. We read everything. And knowing you're not alone in this makes a bigger difference than you'd think.
Thanks for tuning in. Take care of yourselves and each other.
See you next time.